Hello everyone, and thank you for participating in Rare Charitable Research Reserve's Earth Day online outreach. My name is Sarah Marshall, and I'm the Conservation Technician here at Rare. I do a lot of work with reptiles and amphibians, and with the weather warming up, I wanted to share some cool turtle facts and talk a bit about how we can help turtles at risk here in Ontario. Let's start with a quick intro about what Rare is for those who aren't familiar with our reserve. So founded in 2001, the Rare Charitable Research Reserve is a community-driven urban land trust, nature reserve, and environmental institute with its headquarters and main property located in Waterloo Region in Wellington County. We're on the west end of the city of Cambridge. Our property protects almost 1,000 acres of highly sensitive lands. Within this watershed, Rare is comprised of 24 different habitat types. We have remnant old-growth forests situated where the Carolinian zone meets the northern hardwood zone. We have trees over 250 years old. We also manage the floodplain on both sides of the Grand River where it straddles the Speed River coming from Guelph. As a key waterfowl habitat and critical flood regulation zone for the Grand River, we consider this one of Rare's most important ecological features. Needless to say, we consider it highly important to steward these lands with respect for our generations past, present, and yet to come. Since our inception, Rare's taken care of the land on behalf of the community through our three pillars: conservation, research, and education. Okay, so now we're going to start talking about turtles. We're going to learn about all 8 of the species in Ontario, some of the threats that they're facing, how we can help, and then I'm going to talk to you a bit about the Turtle Project at Rare, which is entering its 4th year this year. So let's start with the basics. You probably know that turtles, like snakes and lizards, are reptiles. That means that they have scales, and they are what many people call cold-blooded. Cold-blooded is actually a misnomer because reptiles aren't cold all the time. In the biology world, we prefer to use the term ectothermic. If you break that word down, it's a lot easier to understand. Ecto means outside, and thermic means temperature. So reptiles are the temperature of whatever is outside of them. If they want to warm up, they have to bask in the sun, and if they want to cool down, they can go for a swim or stay in the shade. If I put a turtle in the fridge, pretty soon it'd be the same temperature as the fridge. Another frequent misconception about turtles is that they can take their shell off like a hermit crab and crawl into a new one. This isn't possible. A turtle shell is actually the spine and rib cage bones of a turtle fused together to create the protective shell. We usually call the top part of the shell the carapace and the bottom the plastron. One true fact about turtles is that they're long-lived and they grow very slowly. Many can take 15 to 20 years to reach reproductive age, and studies have suggested that they can live over 100, maybe even over 400 years. As I mentioned before, we have 8 species of turtle in Ontario, but all of them are at risk because of human activities. So it's important that we learn and understand what we can do to help our freshwater turtles here in Ontario. So I'm going to start with the Midland painted turtle, which is arguably the most common species of turtle in Ontario. Most people have seen a painted turtle before. This is partially because they're called a habitat generalist. So they're comfortable in a lot of different types of wetlands in Ontario, which means they're very good at adapting to different environmental conditions, making them more common. They're typically identified by the red markings around the outside of their shell and the yellow markings on their head. They're omnivores, which means that they eat both plants and animals. They'll go for algae, bugs, frogs, and fish. Males like this one have the long claws on the front, which they use for mating. And these guys were recently uplisted from being the only turtle that wasn't at risk at all to being special concern. So that makes it now all 8 of 8 turtles that are a species at risk. The other turtle that many people have seen before is the common snapping turtle. This is a very large turtle. That's one of the main ways that people can identify it, is that it was really big. They can get up to 49 centimeters in shell length, though they're usually closer to 20 to 35 centimeters. They're also identified by their very long tail, which has the stegosaurus-looking spikes going down it. These are scavengers, so 90% of their diet is from dead things. They really like to clean up our ponds and lakes by getting rid of all the gross dead stuff from the bottom. So it's really good to have them in an ecosystem. It keeps it nice and healthy. A lot of people are afraid of snapping turtles. They can get a bit of a bad rap because they're afraid of getting bitten by them. So I want to talk a little bit about why that happens and why we don't have to be as worried as a lot of people are. So the reason that snapping turtles tend to snap is actually because of their shell. You can see that their top shell is very protective, just like every other turtle, but their bottom shell is actually very skinny, and it doesn't cover their whole bottom, and they can't pull inside their shell. So they're afraid of being flipped over because all their meaty bits would be exposed. So instead of being able to pull into their shell like other turtles, they have to snap in defense. Now, this doesn't happen all the time. Snapping turtles very rarely snap in water. Um, if you bother a snapping turtle in the water, it'll usually just go away because it knows that it can easily get away from you. If it gets flipped upside down in the water, it'll just swim away upside down. So you don't have to worry about them biting your toes when you're in the water. They will snap when they're on land because they are afraid of getting flipped over. But it's pretty easy to avoid getting snapped by a snapping turtle on land because they're not very fast or agile. The only time that you would really have to worry would be if you have to pick it up so that you can, say, move it across the road. And you can do that. I recommend that you handle them by the back of their carapace, near their tail, picking them up at the back of the shell because their long neck can actually reach to their hind legs. You can also slide a hand underneath and hold them like a dinner plate. But you never want to pick them up by the tail because it is just an extension of their spine, just like a dog or a cat, and it can seriously hurt them if you pick them up by the tail. So you never want to pick them up that way. Even if you do get bitten by a snapping turtle, though, it's important to know that their bite is only about half of the human bite force. So they actually can't bite fingers off or toes or anything like that. So they're not as scary as a lot of people think, and they're a really important part of the local ecosystem. The northern map turtle is definitely the best swimmer of the Ontario freshwater turtles. It has great big webbed feet for swimming in big water like the Great Lakes, and a keel-shaped shell, kind of like the underside of a boat, that's really helpful for stability. The main way that they're identified is the lines that go all over their shell and their bodies that kind of look like a topographic map. The females are significantly bigger than the males. Females can get quite large, like a dinner plate, whereas males only get to about 15 centimeters in shell length. And they're commonly seen basking in large groups. There'll be 7 or 8 of them piled on top of a single log. Or the other way they're typically seen is just their heads poking up in the distance out on the Great Lakes. They're quite common where there's big water and lots of waves. They're a lot more comfortable with that kind of ecosystem than any of our other freshwater turtles, which is pretty cool. The Blandings turtle is definitely one of my favorites. Its big domed shell looks a lot like those old school army helmets, and they're commonly identified by their bright yellow chin. Their friendly face frequently makes them the poster child for turtle conservation. The big dome does make mating a little bit difficult between male and female turtles, so a good way to tell males from females is that males actually have a concave plastron, while females are flat, so that they can fit together a little bit better. You can see that their feet are a little bit less webbed and better for walking than swimming, which makes sense. They're actually not very good swimmers, and they typically need shallow, calm waters, smaller wetlands for sure. They're also known for traveling up to 5 kilometers to find their perfect nesting spot. Their hinged plastron allows them to close their shell for defense, which is very helpful for their long overland journey. Now, this is our first turtle that's actually threatened instead of just being special concern, and that's largely from the combination of higher road mortality rates because they're traveling such a long way and being a habitat specialist that needs smaller wetlands that lead to it being more in trouble than the others. The eastern musk turtle, also known as the stinkpot, is a very small turtle. They typically only grow to about 9 to 12 centimeters. They're also commonly confused for baby snapping turtles because of their large head and long neck. But a good way to tell the difference is to look for their high domed shell, tiny tail, yellow ninja mask, and their smell. Stinkpots often musk when they're disturbed because they're scared and they want whatever's coming at them to leave them alone. It kind of oozes out of their shell and it's really, really smelly. Something that's really interesting about the stinkpot is that they're shy and they very rarely leave the water. Even when they want to get warm by basking, they'll usually stay in the water and hang out just underneath lily pads, enjoying the warm water that collects underneath them from the sun. I do recommend being careful if you ever need to pick one up. With their long neck, they can reach most of their body, and they're pretty hard to hold onto because of that high domed shell. Our other tiny turtle in Ontario is the spotted turtle. They're small and cute. They only grow to about 9 to 12 centimeters as well. They're black with yellow polka dots and an orange dappled face and legs. These little guys are terrible swimmers, and they need shallow bogs to live in. They're also very cold tolerant. Sometimes they're the first turtles in the spring when the water's still only 3 or 4 degrees. Sometimes they're even seen on top of the snow and ice. Spotted turtles hibernate again in the summer when it gets too hot. This is called estivation. Unfortunately, spotted turtles are cute, and therefore they're typically poached for the pet trade. If you ever see one, never post a photo with the location. We really want to keep the locations of these little guys a secret so that we can keep them in their natural habitats in Ontario. Because of the poaching for the pet trade and the fact that they need a very specific type of wetland to live in, these little guys are unfortunately an endangered species. Our other endangered species, and unfortunately the rarest turtle in Ontario, is the wood turtle. Unfortunately, they're also an endangered species because of poaching. They've got a really thick, knotted-looking brown shell with growth rings on it that looks like knotted wood, and their bright orange neck and legs are very handsome. People really like these guys for pets, and unfortunately, most of their populations have been poached. You'll notice that their feet are very tortoise-like. They spend most of their active season on land, returning to streams to hibernate. Their thick, heavy shell is probably for protection on land. Just like the spotted turtle, it's very important that if you see a wood turtle, you should never post with the location because we're trying to keep their populations a secret, and hopefully someday they can rebound. Arguably the strangest turtle in Ontario is the eastern spiny softshell turtle. This turtle is also quite large, like the snapping turtle, with females growing over 50 centimeters long, although males can only reach about 22 centimeters. Their shell is soft, flat, and pliable. The protection that would usually be granted by a hard shell is sacrificed for speed. These guys are super fast on both land and in the water. A cool adaptation given by this flat shell is that they can bury themselves in the mud and sand underwater, reach their long neck up to the surface, and use their tubular snout to snorkel. Now that we've been through all 8 species of turtles, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the threats that are facing turtles and the reasons why all 8 of them are currently species at risk. Southern Ontario has the largest diversity and concentration of reptiles in all of Canada. Sadly, it also has the highest concentration of people, urban areas, and roads. Roads in particular are really bad for turtles, and their concentration has increased dramatically in the last 60 years. Turtle survival depends on adults surviving. Most eggs don't hatch, and most hatchlings don't make it till adulthood. Even after that, a turtle must live 8 to 25 years to reach sexual maturity. Once there, turtle communities depend on those adults surviving, laying more eggs every year as they age for possibly hundreds of years. Because less than 1% of turtle eggs makes it all the way to adulthood, it can take decades for a turtle to replace itself in the population. Introducing adult mortality in turtles, which was very unlikely before cars, has slashed turtle populations dramatically in southern Ontario. So how can we help prevent turtle road mortality? Well, it starts behind the wheel. When we're driving, it's important to always be looking for wildlife, even small turtles, slowing down at turtle crossing signs, and never texting and driving. We can also help by being turtle crossing guards. If you see a turtle crossing the road, you can pull over, look both ways to make sure that it's safe, and pick up the turtle with both hands. With most species, you can pick them up like a hamburger. With a snapping turtle, you can pick them up by the back of the shell, like in this picture. And it's always important to make sure that you're moving the turtles off the road in the direction that they were going. Turtles are stubborn and they have a really good sense of direction, so don't make them have to cross the road again as soon as you leave. Of course, we can only stop road mortality by preventing it. We can report wildlife sightings to help scientists find road mortality hotspots. The Ontario Road Ecology Group is a great resource for this. We can also be activists for the roads in our neighborhood. attend public information meetings about local road projects, and write your local MP about hotspots that you're concerned about. We can also be advocates for good road ecology practices, things like closing roads when there's big wildlife movements. Wildlife exclusion fencing and eco-passages should be installed along hotspot roads, and the installation of animal crossing signs is really helpful as well. Unfortunately, it's not just roads that reptiles are threatened by. The other major threat to most turtles is habitat loss. Unfortunately, in southern Ontario, we've lost 70% of our wetlands, 80% of our forests, and 98% of our grasslands. Now all Ontario turtle species are at risk. This especially affects turtles like the blandings and spotted turtle who need shallow wetlands because these are the first to be developed. Just like with roads, you can get involved to help turtles and all wildlife put at risk from habitat loss. You could be an activist for the natural areas in your neighborhood that you would like to see stay natural. You can also use your own land for conservation if you can. It can be as simple as planting a pollinator garden, having long grass instead of a manicured lawn, or leaving your leaves. You can also support land trusts like us who work to conserve high-quality habitat in a rapidly developing region. Okay, so now that we've learned a little bit about our 8 species of turtles and some of the challenges that they face, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing for turtles here at the Rare Charitable Research Reserve. The Rare Turtle Nursery project was created in 2017 by Alyssa Fraser on the left. After working with turtle biologist Scott Gillingwater on the UTRCA Spiny Softshell Recovery Project, Alyssa joined the Rare team in 2016. She decided that Rare would be a perfect organization to partner with and fill a gap for turtle conservation in the Waterloo region and Wellington County. This project ranges quite far from our nature reserve in Cambridge, covering a large chunk of southern Ontario. Many turtles like nesting in loose gravel or sand, which frequently results in nests on road shoulders, gravel parking lots, ball diamonds, driveways, and all kinds of dangerous places. The Rare Turtle Nursery project relies on the community to report vulnerable nests from Waterloo Region and Wellington County. Nests are located and excavated. Then the eggs are carefully incubated for many weeks until they hatch. The hatchlings are measured and weighed and then released near where the nest was laid. By artificially incubating these nests, we're able to get turtle hatchlings past that first risky part of their life, as in the nest, there's a high risk of being dug up and eaten or crushed by vehicles driving on the shoulder of the road. In our first year, Rare had a permit for 700 eggs, since we started with only 1 incubator. Within a few weeks, we'd reached the limit and had to start turning nests away. Clearly, there was a need for a project like this. Thanks to the Helen McCree Peacock Foundation and the Ontario Eastern Bluebird Society, as well as a few other private donors, we were able to purchase more equipment and a second incubator, allowing us to increase our capacity for the 2018 field season. At this point, I should probably introduce myself properly. In case you've forgotten, my name's Sarah Marshall. I started as the conservation technician at Rare last April to cover Alyssa's maternity leave. She had a baby boy in June and has passed off her turtle project to me for a little while. I went to school for ecosystem restoration at Niagara College. My first job out of that education was with a place called Scales Nature Park up in Orillia. This reptile education center is located on a 21-hectare nature reserve, and I was responsible for managing the habitats there. Over the 2 years I worked there, I also had opportunities to take care of captive animals, provide reptile education programs, and work as a turtle field technician in the Muskoka area. My combination of habitat and turtle experience has allowed me to transition into Alyssa's role fairly well while she was away. In 2019, I led our turtle project, which was double the size of the previous year, and I'm going to be leading the 2020 turtle project this summer. In 2019, we managed to collect over 2,000 eggs. A lot of this was due to the media attention and community events that Rare engaged with in 2019. We had so many news stories, and we even had a turtle hatchling release event in York Road Park in Guelph that had over 100 people show up. I want to take a moment to give a big thanks to Nature Guelph, the City of Guelph, and the Guelph Humane Society for their incredible support last year. As we come into spring of 2020, I've received many questions about the turtle season in light of the concerns with COVID-19. I just want to reassure everyone that I will be out collecting turtle eggs this year too, and I will introduce any necessary physical distancing protocols if we need to. We're going to protect as many turtles as we can. If you're located in Waterloo region in Wellington County and you see a turtle nesting in a dangerous place this summer, please call me at 905-650-9336, extension 114. If you'd like to support our turtle project, you can donate at our website, raresites.org/donate, and make sure to click the Turtle Project box to make sure that your help is going to the right place. We really appreciate every bit of help. There are lots of other ways that you can get involved with turtle conservation as well. There are a lot of great resources for people to learn more and help biologists with turtle conservation. iNaturalist is a helpful identification resource for any part of the natural world, and you can post your findings on their handy app. Ontario Nature provides fantastic learning resources for turtles and all kinds of other wildlife. They feature beautiful photography, many of which I use today. Please support them, they do great work. The Ontario Road Ecology Group is a great way to learn more about wildlife and roads and to report hotspots in your community. There are many groups and clubs that you can get involved with as well. Some examples include the Turtle Guardians, the Adopt a Prawn program through the Toronto Zoo, and Turtle Power on Facebook. There are also many conservation projects like mine working to protect turtles in Ontario. The Saving Turtles at Risk Today Start Turtle project covers a huge area of Ontario north of Toronto. You can text or call the Turtle Hotline, 705-955-4284, about any rare, nesting, injured, or dead turtles in the Simcoe, Muskoka, Parry Sound, and Haliburton region. The CWF's Eastern Ontario Turtle Project covers much of the area near Ottawa. You can contact CWF about Blandings turtle sightings or vulnerable nests. And of course, towards London, there's the UTRCA's Spiny Softshell Recovery Project. There are now 2 main dedicated turtle hospitals that are taking injured turtles in Ontario. The Ontario Turtle Conservation Centre, also known as the OTCC, is located in Peterborough, but they take turtles from all over Ontario. You can call 705-741-5000 for injured turtles, and they'll find a way to get that injured turtle to their hospital. If you want to volunteer, you can join the Turtle Taxi Service to help ferry injured turtles all the way there. A new turtle hospital on the scene is the Georgian Bay Turtle Hospital. They cover much of the same region as the START project, Simcoe, Muskoka, Parry Sound, and Haliburton, and they're now accepting injured turtles for the 2020 field season. There's also a number of wildlife rehabilitation centres across Ontario, and you can check online at ontariowildliferescue.ca to see who takes turtles. Thank you for taking the time to learn about turtles in Ontario, their conservation, and what we're trying to do at Rare to help. I hope that you all have a great Earth Day. Take care.